Welcome to another episode of Low Tech Garage. And as you can see, our trusty XJ is behind me again today. And it has decided that it has enjoyed the attention so much from the last video where we recalibrated all the suspension, got the ride height right, that it wanted to be featured on the channel again. So let me show you what's going on. So I parked the car here, here, overnight. She has left me this lovely surprise. Now, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I need to get to the bottom of it. And honestly, I had a couple other parts that I wanted to put on the car anyway. So I thought, you know what? Let's get the car up in the air, get the under tray off. I want to replace the fuel filter anyway. And also I had a cabin air filter. So I figured I'd show you guys kind of what I was doing with that. And let's keep our fingers crossed that the leak that is occurring is something minor. Hopefully something's come loose. We can clean it up, tightening it up, and get it back on the road. But let's go see what's going on with it. All right, so we'll start by opening the hood. Definitely glad I put those hood struts on. Boy, it's a little bit of a mess under here. I should probably see where all this stuff on the cowl covers come from as well. And admittedly, I'm gonna start with the easy piece, and that's doing the cabin air filter. I'm sure a lot of you know how to do this already, but if not, I'll show you how to do it now before we get the car up in the air. Man, I'm not gonna lie, but this really shows that the car is in dire need of a bath. I think that's gonna be coming up here soon as well, because it certainly needs some love. But time to get on with the cabin air filter. I got a nice big chunky one that also is carbon infused, so it keeps odors out of the cabin as well. I'll put the part number below so you can see where to get what I got as well, if that makes your life easier. But we're gonna reach in here, get this cover off, which is pretty easy. And then basically down here, we have a little cover that just pulls back. And here's the filter. It's very easy on this car. A lot of them you have to go through the glove compartment. I think folks have seen that on our G37 we used to have. But here's the one I just removed. Admittedly not terrible. Some trash down in there. And yeah, more than anything, just for peace of mind, get this thing switched out. Definitely this thing also weighs about a quarter of what the one I'm putting in. So I have a feeling the surface area for filtering will be a little bit better as well. And you know I couldn't just leave all these leaves here. So we're gonna vacuum all this out and get the engine bay cleaned up, so we have a nice area for the filter to go in. And maybe just another angle. The lighting seems to be a little bit better here, but nice and cleaned out. So we're gonna get it with the airflow, so we know which way the air needs to pass across it, blowing in from this side. We're gonna get the filter installed, and then we'll clip the frame around it. So it's nicely seated now. And tuck the frame in. There you have it. It's nicely seated. So there you go. It's nicely seated in the housing. This is clipped in at the top. And now we'll have lovely fresh air inside the cabin. And of course, the last step, let's put this cover on as well. Let's get it seated in here. And mine's no different than others where one of the pegs is broken. So you can see it lifting up here, but that's pretty common on these, but it's still clipped down nicely. And for those that are wondering, here's the part number. And like I said, I will put a link in the description below where you can purchase one of these as well. As you saw, it fit perfectly, and it is more of a quality filter, probably give you cleaner air inside the car. So as I mentioned, that's the easy part. I figured I'd ease into it today with some of the other curveballs the cars have been showing me this week. So now we have a nice new cabin air filter installed in the car. Hopefully keeps the odors down and the dust out. But also, while I've got the hood open, I think I mentioned I'm gonna do the fuel filter as well. The fuel filter is a common problem on these. They get clogged up and then you run into a hot start issue. This car does have that, and it's funny, it's only when it's actually really hot outside that I'm running into it. But if I've been driving the car a while and I park it and it's 80, 90 degrees outside, and then I come back out after a couple minutes and wanna head out, the car does not want to idle. It starts and then shuts off. I had this exact problem with another X350 that I had, actually the one that I started this channel with about 4 years ago, and it was the exact same problem. I put a new fuel filter in and the problem was solved. So I have a new filter, and that's gonna be the next thing I do on the car. However, I thought, let me get the cabin air filter in, and then next I'm gonna bleed off the fuel pressure on the fuel rail. So when we open the fuel line, it doesn't gush everywhere, or at least not as much. So let's get to that now. So step one with this is gonna be getting the engine cover off. If I recall, we just got some Phillips head, basically lock screws that hide back here. Probably should have used a longer screwdriver. There she goes. And then always got to take the oil cap off. Just pop that up there. If I've got it. Looks like I released one of them completely. There she goes. We're out of the way. Well, it seems I might be foiled by Jaguar on this one, but let me show you what I'm dealing with. So, on my other 4.2, there was a Schrader valve right here. I was able to put some rags around it and bleed off the fuel pressure, allowing me, when I changed the fuel filter, not to just spray fuel everywhere. But it appears on the 2009 that I do not have this. So I guess we're gonna get on with this and get the car up in the air and see what we can do from underneath. All right, well, it's gonna be a little tricky to see, but as you saw, I got the car raised up. I'm gonna go underneath. There's actually an under tray on the driver's side I'm gonna remove. And actually, while I'm under there, I'm gonna remove the main under tray that goes under the oil pan as well. I'm gonna have to do that to see where the source of this oil leak is. So I figure while I have the tools out, I'll just buzz all of those off. I think they use the T30 Torx for a lot of it and 10mm bolts. So I'm gonna go under there. I'll do a little time lapse. I'm not sure if it's gonna be very useful to you guys. And I'll also crawl under there real quick and try and give you a glimpse of what I'm actually trying to remove. And then I'll show you where the fuel filter is. And then I'm sure we will find the source of this oil leak at the same time. So you find me on the left side of the car, and under this tray that runs the length of the car is the fuel supply lines. And I believe hiding sort of in this vicinity is where the fuel filter is. So I'm gonna undo all the bolts and hardware on this and get this out the way. And we can kind of see my under tray. It's kind of sagging down there already. And there are lots of oil drips on that too. So I'm gonna work on getting that undone as well to see what's going on with it. All right, so we have this side under tray out of the way. I admittedly have one bolt that is not playing nice, so I've just moved it for now. I'm gonna investigate kind of what's going on with that and if I can get it off. So let me show you where the fuel filter is now. And there she is. As you guys can see, now we're a little closer. This is an original Jag one, so I am guessing that this is original to the car. So as it's a 2009 model year, this thing's at least 15 years old, and certainly explains why it could be clogged at this point. Oh, and I did remove this bracket. The filter was actually clipped into this. I think more than anything, and this just protects it in case there is a hard hit or something underneath the car. This is a little shield just to stop it from getting damaged. It was just held on with one 10mm bolt. And given I wasn't able to bleed the fuel off, we're gonna put this under here and just crack the lines and kind of drain out the fuel that's in the system, and then we'll work on getting the filter off. And this is really where I'd love to have the car up on a 2-post lift so I can show you guys a little bit better, but maybe that's something for the future so that I can give you guys a little better view of what I'm working on. All right, well, that wasn't so bad. I guess the newer style fuel system didn't seem to have too much pressure in it, so I just cracked the lines on the filter and let the pressure bleed off for, I don't know, maybe a minute or two. And then I started undoing the lines on each side of the filter. When I pulled the filter out, it did drain down a little bit, basically just residual fuel in the line, but not too bad. So let me show you what I'm working with. So here we are. Now there's no filter. You kind of see what it looks like. And then here is the filter right here. I just have it in my catch pan because there is still a little bit of fuel in it. Do apologize about the lighting. I will continue to work on improving that for the videos as well. But I'm gonna leave this in the pan to continue to drain. And we're gonna put a brand new filter right up in here. And here's the filter I'm working with. So I opted for a Bosch option. I figured that's probably a decent quality product. Here's the part number right here. I will also put that in the description below. Here's the filter itself, again with the flow, similar to the air filter. So this is gonna be coming from the tank side and then up to the engine. So I'm gonna pop these caps off and you'll meet me back under the car as we get this installed. And in case you didn't notice, you see it says low torque design. I did notice that even when I took the other filter out, that this is not done up that tight. You just kind of nip it up, and that's all it takes. So just wanted to point that out as well. Okay, so there you have it. We are nice and installed. We have our brand new fuel filter. And like I said, this should resolve the hot start issues that you can run into. On both my cars, it seemed to happen right around the 100,000 mile mark or just after. I don't know if that's coincidence, but it seems like if you're at 100,000 miles and you have not changed this, for the 10 or 15 bucks it costs for the filter, is cheap insurance not to have the headache of the car not wanting to start when it's hot. And lastly, here's a little shield I showed you that was on the ground. It's clipped up over the filter and is bolted up by this one bolt. Really just protecting the fuel filter itself from like debris or anything that could potentially damage it. All right, well, I've avoided it long enough. I've got the cabin air filter in, I've got the fuel filter in, but now we need to find out what the heck is the source of my oil leak. So I'm gonna hop back under the car. I'm gonna get the front under tray out, which will take me a minute, and you'll find me back under there to see what is going on. Now, all I can say is I hope it's something simple, because it's losing quite a bit of oil even when the car is not running. So let's get this cover off and see what's going on. All right, you find me under the car. Let's get a flashlight. And this is what we have. So up on the front here, there's a lot of residue. And let's move around to the side real quick. We can see basically oil drips on all this hardware. What's interesting to me though, when I look, is we have drips on the oil filter housing, and it's just generally pretty gross all around the oil pan as well. And then let's see if we can get up here. If I recall, sometimes the filter housing itself the O-rings go bad. Now, I did manage to tighten the oil filter, maybe 1/8 of a turn. I am wondering if that's why it's leaking. All of this, we need to figure out where it's coming from. I was hoping there'd be a bit more obvious smoking gun, but come to find out, everything's just soaked. So I'm gonna clean all this up and see if that helps us figure out where this is coming from. Okay, so you find me back under the car and a few too many cans of brake clean later. And it's looking a lot more dry. Admittedly, I really cannot find a smoking gun on this, which is a little concerning. Like I said, I was able to tighten up the oil filter, which if we look here, it's right there. But I mean, I'm talking maybe like 1/8 of a turn. It wasn't anything crazy. The only thing I can think other than this is either the oil filter housing O-ring or the pan gasket itself. I'm gonna do a little more investigation before I put the under tray back up and see if I can see anywhere the oil's weeping out. But as of right now, it's been a little bit of a challenge, and I'm wondering if maybe, just maybe, it was this oil filter that was leaking. Not exactly the outcome that I was hoping for, but I think I'm just gonna have to monitor this over the next couple days and see if something comes back now that it's all clean. Hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to identify. All right, well, it is the next day and we are back on the Jag. And I figured, you know what? This video is a video of filters. We've done the fuel filter, which will help the hot start problem that the car's been having. I tightened up the oil filter. And one thing I thought, you know what? I better check this, as I hadn't checked it yet since I've owned the car, is what the engine air filter looked like. So let's take a look at it now. Let the jiggling commence. Well, that'll work for now. Would you look at that? And what's funny is I'm pretty sure I said the filter in the F-150 was the grossest one I'd seen in a while. This takes the cake. So I wrestled the top of the air filter housing off. I just wanted to see what was inside the lower part of the box here, make sure there wasn't any trash. And look what I found. These are all clips that have been missing from under the hood. So I guess someone probably stored these in here at some point and then completely forgot about them. And just for comparison's sake, this is a new filter on the right and the old one on the left. Boy, was it time to change this thing out. And for those that are wondering, this is the filter that I'm using. I will put a link in the description below as well, so that you can easily grab one of these if you're in need for your Jag. So let's get this new filter in and let this car breathe a little easier. She's gonna need a little persuading here. All right, well, I'm not gonna lie, that thing decided it wanted to fight me a little more than anticipated. For some reason, the air filter was marginally bigger, probably just because it hasn't been squished in there for so long, and it made clipping the lid down a little bit of a challenge. But it's in, and I hope the car can breathe a little easier now. Boy, I really need to do something under the hood here to clean this thing up. This is really not acceptable amount of dust and dirt under here.
So I think that's going to conclude our filter session here on the Vandam Pla. As I mentioned earlier, we did an engine filter, we did a fuel filter, and we checked the oil filter because it appeared to be leaking. Certainly I'm gonna have to keep my eye on that because it's a little concerning, the amount of oil that was coming out of it, but hopefully we have it fixed. And with that, if you came this way to my channel because of cars like the Jaguar right here, you are in the right place. We have a very soft spot for the Jaguar Land Rover vehicles, and I am always buying them, fixing them, restoring them, and keeping them on the road, even when sometimes it feels like I might be torturing myself. And with that, please do consider subscribing. It really does help me out. It helps me grow the channel, and it's what allows me to continue bringing content like this to you. And hopefully I can share my knowledge and experience with you along the way as well. And while you're at it, if you have any input, please leave me a comment. I'd be more than happy to provide feedback along the way. You know, if it's questions about the work I've done, or if you have input on how things might make the jobs easier that I have done or for other folks in the future, please leave that below because it helps me and it helps the community as well. And with that, we're gonna wrap up this episode, and we will be back very soon with some more Jaguar content. I have some parts that have been on the shelf a little too long, and I really wanna get them in the car and share them with you because actually, beyond maintenance, there's some other cool products out there that really bring these cars into the modern era, and I wanna share that with you here soon as well. But with that, I will see you on the next episode.